Gentlemen, may I have your attention? The presentation is about to begin. To all participants, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera and good morning. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to webinar series Research on Friday, brought to you by School of the Arts, live via Facebook and WebEx. Thank you for your time and effort to join ROF today. My name is Zuriawati Ahmad Zahari and I am the lecturer from Graphic Department, School of the Arts, USM. And I will be serving as your moderator today. Before we go further, I would like to introduce a little bit about our panelist, Mr. Goh Chu Hiang. Mr. Goh is a senior lecturer in Graphic Communication Department, School of the Arts, USM. He is an experienced lecturer with a demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry and design research. He's also trained arts and design educator, graphic designer, and interactive designer with an MSc in Information Technology from the School of Computer Science, USM. He was among the pioneer participants in Malaysia to the Distinguished NNG User Experience Conference in Las Vegas, USA in 2007. He was the head of the design department from 2007 to 2009 and was involved in various research projects under the USM Apex and Research University grants since 2009. He is a professional member of the Design Research Society, Association of Computer Machinery, and ACM Special Interest Group in Computer-Human Interaction. He is also a level 2 practitioner in TRIS. His research interests include culture study in human-computer interaction, graphic communication design, user experience design, user persona studies, design research history, and theory. So that is a bit of introduction of our panelists today. Okay. For student and staff USM, please remain to the end because we will provide my CPD link in the chat box later. We will have the Q&A session at the end of this talk. So make sure to write down your question in chat box or you may unmute yourself to ask the question to the panelists later. Okay, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Goh to present his topic, Target Audience Persona, a Pragmatic Research Approach in Graphic Communication Design. The floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zuriawati, and very good morning to everybody. Yeah, so thank you for coming to this this talk. Actually, this is to me is more to like knowledge sharing rather than talk, because I think if those who remember the origin of ROF, Research of Friday, in School of the Art, it was started I think around 2010 or 2011 by Dr. Ismail, and then the main motive is for lecturers and researchers and students to share their research experience and knowledge, or even have intellectual discussions, debate, and things like that. So what I'm going to present today is not things such as my outcome or whatever, but it's more to my journey and my experience in conducting research and study in user personas. It has been years since I first exposed it in 2007 when I first joined went to the NNG user experience conference. And then from there, I slowly developed, and then written few paper regarding this. So this is more to like sharing, and maybe there are more expert around the audience that can give me some ideas and or no feedback like that, right? And so let me start. So just a brief idea. So because there's a mix in among the audience think there are some lecturers experts in the area, some they are students, you know. So I'll just give a quick intro, and as I mentioned, this more to the sharing of my knowledge in this area with everybody. Right. So what is target audience? Right. So what is underlying theoretical foundations of design, you know, and target audience relationships, and what has changed throughout the time, and what is a new solution to adapt to change. And actually, I'm proposing something. Actually, is one of the paper I try to come up with things such as target audience personas. So if you get, if you know what persona is, you will know that personas are the one of the tool or the methods that use in user-centered design, right? In interactive design, in user experience studies. But here as because I'm more involved with the communication design, graphic communications. So I try to make use of this persona into the target audience studies. You know? So that's my approach, and this is what I try to share today. Right? Okay. So what is target audience? So those who are in graphic design or graphic communication design, or even you're in fine arts, even you're in music, you have your audiences to serve, right? So, and then you make a target, right? Vote those which are the target groups. So this is the, the way or the method that we use to it, right? To study who are our audience. So if you look at the famous book by Malcolm Barner, he like to use this analogy, like, you know, designer, like you're practicing is a target practice. So whether your arrow is shooting right to the target group or not, that's a question of, you know, target audience. And most of the time, I think those practitioners, whether in your in graphic design or even your in fine arts and whatever things, we tend to have a very subjective ideas, right? Regarding who is your target audience, right? It says, okay, my target audience is somebody between the age of 20 to 30 and know what background, etc. When it comes to graphic design, this is more to the audience group who are designer aiming for the visual message. You know? And then how we going to send target, how they interpret. So the way we design, the element we use, the principle that we apply is more toward that target audience group. But it's always not in a very systematic way. Right? If you're in the industry, the practitioner, then you know, right? It is a very kind of a very abstract kind of reference. Say, okay, that's my target group, this is what I'm going to do, and I think this is what they like. Okay. But if you go to the literature of marketing study, they have, you know, marketing areas and things like that. Then they are more focused, they have a chart, they have a statistic, no? But the lack of this communication things that involve, right? But those are the marketing experts. So that's why here we when we come to graphic communication or design, we tend to involve both. And of course today's the my sharing is not towards the argument of why graphic design, why graphic communication. That would be another long discussion. But here I think in SOTA, in graphic communication department, that's why we name it graphic communication, because we see that graphic design is more to some sort of a, if you go back to the ontological aspect of design, that is more to the activity of mark making, you know, mark making kind of design thing. But when if we involve with communications, then will be the marketing aspect, the visual communication aspect, the campaign and all these things come. So it's a bigger picture. So the target audience that involved will be a more complex thing no, rather than a simple group that, no, in your mind or in engineering field, they say that's what in the mental models, right? So what's it? So what's the underlying theoretical foundation? So I think actually I have a grant which I'm working on this lately. And also, so when we go through some literature, so I'm not saying this is my theoretical framework yang sudah masak, but it's still based on subject to change, no? But that's the idea of sharing here. So we go through some important writing or literature in graphic communication, in design, no, like Barnett's paper, Bennett's 2007, and etc. You find that there are some argument in theoretical background, like regarding what's the relationship between the designer and the target audience, and what are the underlying things. Okay, so based on that, this is my current find out that. So I'll call it a theoretical foundation rather than full or complete, a mature framework. So so this is based on those theories with all this paper that, well, that's a relationship that you can see. So a target audience, the major task. So the target audience, the job of the designer is to create and to change the value, right? So you can look at this chart or this diagram. So there's a relationship with three key things, which is the goal, belief, attitude. No, goal, attitude, and behavior, right? And how to make it more clear? All right. Always when a designer tend to design something, and does it you I think you guys are from graphic background, you should know that you're based on rhetorical theories and based on persuasive science, no? How to use the color, the influence to persuade people, to convince people to achieve to do something, to change of the use the target audience behavior into, for instance, you're selling something, so into the buying behavior, the buying attitude, right? So these are the theoretical foundations. So for instance, okay, let's say to make everybody understand about this diagram, I'll give an example. For instance, okay, buying a car. Okay, buying a car. So the target audience, you're a buyer, you want to buy a car, you want to buy a new car. So you already have a goal. That's your goal, right? For instance, I want to buy an imported car. Right? I want to buy an imported car. And what kind of imported car that you want to buy? You have a set of belief, a perception, right? So that's what we call the attitude. So if you look at down the small square there, I've written there is how they perceive themselves, right? I want to have an imported car from German or Mercedes or things like that. You have a belief, you have a self attitude. And this is linked to from your belief, and it portray, show up through your attitude, know what you want, what you like. And to support your goal, you have a set of value that you believe. Okay, this car must be fast. Those are value. Safe, for instance, right? And aesthetically appearing, not attractive, or show. Or you can go to Donald Norman's emotional design or visceral behavioral and all those models, no, to apply the value here. And then from here, the value based on the goal that you set, it will trigger your behavior on what kind of car that you want to buy, right? You go to shop and you buy. That's the behavior. So what the role of the designer here to in order to convince you or to persuade you, so that when come to communicate, graphic communication is always be persuasive science, right? To change, right? They say, okay, Proton X60 chip. Not sorry, I shouldn't use the word cheap. Then people will scold me, right? More economic. The you have more money, power, and all this. So how to change the mindset, change the behavior? That's the job. That's the graphic communication. There's an advertising task to change the brand value. So what normally what the designer do through the poster, through the video, through the promotional items or the design or the design artifacts that they produce is to conduct and to change the value, right? So those are based on the theory that I discussed of the target audience, so that they change. So maybe the target audience at the beginning he want to buy a Mercedes, not a Merc, but throughout the poster, the campaigns that run through, for example, I give an example of Proton, right? Proton X70, X50. That's the chart, the task of persuasive science through graphic design, graphic communication, intend to change the value of this target audience. And then at the end of the day, they might not buying the German made Mercedes, but buying a local Proton X70. So I think that's the whole objective of a design process from beginning and the end. So this is I try to map it up, based on those theory that I analyzed, and this the whole thing. Okay, the whole thing. So the problem now is how to capture and how to record the goal, the attitude, the behavior, all these attributes of the target audience in a very systematic way, right? As an experienced graphic designer, whatever designer, the thing is all in your mind, right? Based on the experience, you make decision, you make a design decision. Okay, this is what the user, my target audience like, what color they like, what images they like. I try to change their behavior. But how about a very objective, a very systematic way of doing all this? So this is where the role of persona comes in. Okay? Where how so I think later we'll go to what is persona if you're right. So this is the whole picture. I try to visualize it to map out the theoretical foundations of how the relationship between the designer, target audience, and how it works. So what has changed throughout the time? I think in graphic communication in particular. So we see from IR 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you learn graphic design or graphic communication 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you learn how to print brochures, banners, posters, postcards, etc. But now we are slowly moving in digital medias. So now you don't see people stucking all these flyers into your post box anymore, right? That was happened few years back, right? You always will open the post box, wow, whole bunch of flyers there. No more. But now where is your flyers? All come to your mobile phones, right? Your Instagrams, all this still you're receiving it, but in a different form, in a different way. But it doesn't mean that you don't need all the printed. They are still there, but the role and the requirement is not that much, right? So we are shifting. So that's the quantum, what you call the shift of platform, different things. Of course, I'm not going to details of this, but so let's look at the basic. There's some literature that I discovered. Let's look at the basic of this, how communication activity take place. I think everybody know about this order. So encoder, sender, and right? So designer and then the target audience. And there are three levels of audience perspective response to how to decode. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is currently what I stand for. Is one is the object is seen as isolated as a formal aesthetic expression, and the audience consequently regard as spectators. So this is more to that. Put a poster there, you go and see, and you want to buy, you buy, you don't want to buy, this is walk off. Right? Or this can apply to fine art as well, right? And put a painting into an exhibitions, audience come, audience go, they just look at it, they might like it, they might your artwork might evoke some of their emotional feelings, they feel good, they feel bad, but that's it, right? That's the basic, very static way, passive way of visual communication or graphic communication process. Two, audience are passive reader in the communication process. When audience decodes and interpret visuals, but is not in active participation. They might do, but the third one, that is what happening now. If you go to digital media, you click on whatever Facebook posting sent by your friends or whatever, or any advertisement here, you click. So when you click, there's interactions happening, right? There's interaction happening, and even you yourself, you are meaning making. You sometimes you produce your own content. You give suggestion, you give comment. There's the interactions, right? So that's why I try to say that we cannot base on the old models such as the 1 and the 2 activities anymore, but we have to, as a graphic communication designer or graphic designer or whatever designer, the third way of audience response is not happening. It really happens, and it's been here for years. So the old way of looking at, no, I just design a poster, I print it out and I put it there. No, how are they going to buy a product, or when but how many people are going to change the behavior? For instance, your non-smoking campaign poster, it's no longer that way, but it's all happening here, right? So there are more interactive activities, and even the audience themselves, they are the content creator rather than the receiver, right? So based on I try to use the trees functional model to analyze the process, and also based on Andre Bennett's one famous book in graphic design research. So normally, what was according to her is that the designer learns informations, and then they produce design solutions. They produce artifact, they produce stuff, they design a poster. How they design a poster, they go and get information. The information might be provided by the clients, right? Or you go and just look around. And it based on, as I say, it's a rhetorical base, basic and designer own experience. So that's why we always have this kind of celebrity designer, no, top designer, or this thing was designed by who and who, because their experience. And they design, the design decision is a very subjective design decision based on their experience. Okay? Based on their experience. So that, as I mentioned earlier, there's no systematic way, there's no objective way that you can trace or check out. So there's no direct interaction participations. Sometimes, no, they're good designing firm. Okay, they come, we design based on their experience, apply. Okay, what type of form this should apply, what type of color this one, what kind of image. They think, oh, that is good, and it works, and publish it. Right? But it can be a very insufficient function of producing this, or into the or back refer to the model that I shared with you guys just now, the value construct, right? So let's say this is more visual kind of explanation, that mean the client may provide you information with data with chart. So what? How are you going to convert it into the design to our work? Okay? So designer always has this problem. So the intermediate part, right? your client might show you, okay, this is my target audience group. We have 1,000 people from where and where, and that is what they like. That's the buying power. These things like that. But how you transfer this into a design. So what is the new solutions? Well, so let's try to figure out through the use of TA personas, right? So to empathies. So if you're good in design thinking, you know empathy, ideations, that thing. So the user persona allows the designer to empathize, to sit or to wear into the shoes of the target audience and to understand, try to understand, try to imagine what they want and what they like, and come out with better solution rather than just based on the designer's own experience. If you're a young designer, you have less experience. And of course, how you gather the information, you have to do some sort of research to the target audience groups. Okay? So this is what we are practicing now in our FIP for graphical. So this is what happened. So hopefully with this information, you can use it to build your personas, and with the empathize of this empathy that the practice that you apply by the graphic designer, you can produce a better design solution for your client, or to solve the design problem. If you're talking about the model of design as a problem solving process, right? So this is I try to visualize it through the trees function model. So trees is a series of tools invented by a Russian engineer in solving engineering and design problems. Right? Okay. So we have the empathies, we have the personas to help to fulfill this gap between the data you get and how to. So the data will help you to build the persona. And through the persona, you try to understand, you try to empathize. So persona will be that a dummy, or some we call the dummy, for you to empathize, understand their behavior, their liking, what they want to your solutions. Right? Okay, so what is persona? If you are new in persona, so persona is a artificial person's, or we call it the dummy. Okay, one of the proprietor in this area is Donald, right? So if you know UX, then you should know who he is. I first met him, I think, many years ago, and then I was so surprised. Why this old man and everybody want to take photo with him, and then don't even know that is Donald. So a persona is artificial person invented for the purpose of helping a designer understand the people who will be used in their products. To understand to personalize it, rather than you look at the data, look at the figure, look at the chart and statistic. As a designer, I don't think we really appreciate or no can get any ideation through the raw data and the statistic. So we are more visual oriented people. So we need to visualize it. So the persona is like a dummy personal, or some will call it as a profile, user profile. But well, we build it up, that profile into person profile. And the designer trying to understand that, right? So designer detailed description imagery people's, no? So there's another famous book in personal studies. So yeah, the current use of persona actually the word persona, if you go back to you go study through the ontological developments and all these things, you know that actually even in theater, in performance, you guys use personas, right? There's actually there's actually a personas, and personae. Actually, it was in one of my paper that how we go the origin of where as a theater player probably they'll immerse themselves into the character of the people that they try to play. There's persona as well. But the modern use of persona in UCD, user-centered design, or into user experience design, or into interactive design, or into HCI, it started in 1998 with this famous book. Okay, so by this famous book by Alan Cooper. Right, if you go to literature of personas in UI, UX, in HCI and whatever, everybody will cite this book as the beginning. But if you're from performance or musical background, you say, oh, persona, actually we've been using it for years, right? Back to the history of the performance. Right. And what's the difference? Now back to the story of graphic communications. And as I mentioned just now, it was widely used in UCD. Okay, user-centered design, it was widely used in human-computer interactions. You name it. You just Google the thousands and thousands of literature and papers that you can get from there. But target audience, can we apply it into the target audience? As in graphic communication, as in graphic design. And there are some differences in between these two, user and target audience. So what's the difference between target user and if you're from a product design or industrial design background, then you're talking about user. You're from new media in web design, in multimedia design, you're talking about user. User refer to people that use the apps that you create, people that play the games that you create. They are using it, right? But they are different with target audience, as we refer in graphic communication. No? So that's why just now in the slide I started with target audience. Okay? And who so user can be people that use the product, but target audience is people that will buy the products. So when define the target audience, there are difference. It can be, especially for instance, if you are doing a design for a children's game or children's book, the target audience might not be the child, right? The underage child, 5 kindergarten, they don't know which book to buy, but it can be the parents that decide, the parents that have the buying power. That's why just now I mentioned about the marketing elements come into target audience for graphic communications. So when you want to design something, you not only design the target for the children, of course, the book layout, the text that you use for the children, but the promotional things, items, design, artifact they use, you can target on the parents instead of the children, because it's the parent that decide what to buy, not the child, not the children. So that's the difference between user and target. And if you are in product design, right? You design a white good, let's say a refrigerator, right? You study the user, how people use it, the ergonomic, the design, everything. But when it comes to target audience, it can be people who are going to buy. So people who are going to buy the product might not necessarily to be the people that are using the product. So that's a very strong difference in between target audience and user. And if you go through the literature of a persona, it's all there for user persona. But there's so far, I think in Google Scholar, they are not into target audience, right? That's why I think I think 2 years ago I come up with one paper regarding this, but it's not still not that significant in the area. So the journey is still on, right? So that's the difference. Okay, so what is the target audience persona? This is how I try to define it in paper in 2020. So target is an archetype, no? It's the same thing as in user persona. A member of target audience, they are fictional representations based on behavior data knowledge gained from the target audience study of market research. Good. So you can use a strategy of multiple ways. And the tab, or I call it the tab, right? TAP, narrow down target audience to a personal level. Specific character with faces, name, goal. You can give your target, your persona a name, huh? David ke Peter ke Ali ke Mutu ke anything with an age, with just a normal profile. That's why some people say, oh, this is just a profiling. So, and the key thing is goals, values, belief, and behavior. So those are the key attributes that I mentioned just now based on the theoretical finding that I discovered. Okay, so the designer allowed to step into the shoes of this target audience to empathize and understanding the belief and the values and try to create the real, to change the value and from that value to change the behavior of the target audience. That's the whole objective of it. Right. A more simple way is that, well, you have target audience, you have designer at the tab. It just sit in the middle for you to empathize, understand them. Right. So only by seeing the world through the audience eye and can communication design build durable and beneficial audience relationship. This was by Fabiola in 2014. So the different, I think just now I mentioned it before. So the difference is more to the user personas as representation of person going to use the product, right? Or even the service. So the main focus will be the improving their user experience, their UX, make them feel easy to use the product, friendly, happy, and all. But target audience, it can be a segment of your target audience who are make the decision to purchase. That's the key difference here. To service and the one. So the people that buy, the buyer can be user as well, but the buyer not necessarily don't need have to be a user as well. No, the parent and the children's example that I given just now, right? So the target audience persona focus on understanding and empathizing the target audience. But as a designer, your key function is to change the behavior of the buyer or to change the behavior of if you are into any social campaign, the behavior of your target audience, for instance, like non-smoking and all these things, who read exposed to your design. So these are some points when you set a survey, interview, or the information, the data that we tend to gather, and that's the difference between user persona and target audience persona. So user persona, the key thing more to the almost the same. They have the goal, they have the values, but yeah, another two things are the competency. So if you look at the template of most of the user persona, they tell you about competency. Competency mean okay, the user this persona know how to use handphone, know how to know certain level of computer competency and their behavior on when do they use the phone more, what time, and etc. And then technical skill as well. But target audience, you can have all this. Actually, there are some mixed area between both. But here I try to intend to focus into these three things, which is the goal, value, behavior, and the attitudes. And the rest, the demographical things, is more or less the same. Age, the professional, norms. Okay. And yeah, this is one of the paper that I published in 2018. And based on models where he claimed that this goal, behavior, and attitudes are the three key things, and they can make a triangulations among these three to validate the characters or the data of your persona. Because as you see the relationship of the goals, behavior, and attitude I showed just now. Goal is not the what the user aim to do, right? Want buy a car. And it show it off through his behavior. But the attitude is some kind of preset belief that he already have in his mental model on what type of car they will use. So if he can map up these three things, right, and you can build a very good personal profile. Right. So these are the few techniques that we use. And yeah, so back to this is the thing that I try to relate it to what we did back in 4 years ago. Okay. And this is the current model that I built. So 4 years ago, I just know that okay, butlers say like Mulders say like this, no, then I try to do it. But here throughout the analyzing more writings and more theories regarding graphic communications, now it triangulate, right, that this can be done. Right. Okay. So this is a typical profile of a persona that we managed to create, okay, in 2018 based on the user goal attitudes. Right. And it's target on the audiences of a SOTA school website. Okay. So this is a typical example. If you're new in persona, so this is the persona profile. So you have a face, you have a name, you have a demographical information, and then we try to capture the behavior and the goals. And as a designer, when you design something, that is how you look at them, and that is your target audience. Rather than 1,000 or 2,000 people you have to design, you don't know which one. So this is like the gist, the essence, no? Pati ayam, no? The just essence of the target audience group that you're going to design for. So we compress it and make it to 2 or 3 characters, 2 or 3 personas. So to make the job of a designer easier, and you can empathize and look at it. Okay, this is this kind of people, what he like, you design. Okay, and your objective is to construct the value and to change, no, to construct a design artifact that hopefully can change the value and change the behavior. That's the end. Of course, how far it works, how effective it is, that's another long length of studies. Right. So significant step in design process. First, it built empathy, as I emphasized just now. And then it developed focus, right? As I mentioned, you have 10,000 target audience groups. How are you going to design? So you can build persona based on so we conduct interview, gather that data, collectively, you build out the key character based on the patterns of everything. You build out maybe 2 or 3 personas. So when you design, it's just based on these 3 personas, character, their requirement, their liking, their goal to design your work. Another important thing is communication and form consensus. How are you going to present it to your client? Okay, this is what they like. Before that, you present it in a chart, a graph, all those things. You present with a personas. And that is what happening, and it's been happening for so many years in user personas. Right? In a global company, how a designer in American communicate with a designer in Australia or in Malaysia, or send them, okay, this is what you need to do. They send personas, they share personas. So if you're a designer in a global company like Google, all this is what they do, what they use, personas. to share the profile. That's how they communicate, right? And make and defend your decisions. So that is based on this. And this is what they like, and this is what they want, and this is what their abilities. No, all these things that how you can argue during your brief or your presentation to the clients. So measure effectiveness. Yes, this is the way that you can do it, but yeah, still need some further study into this. And another interesting point which I just recently add is the automation design ready. Automation design ready. What is automation design? So if you refer to IR 1, 2, 3, 4, so we are going to, as everybody know, into AI. So how the AI is also is all as automations. So you need to have data to fit. So the actually in some way we are going to work the automation design. I mean the design without the designer. It's some scary things, but it can happen in I don't know how many years in the future. Or in certain extent is happening. So how the AI make design decisions based on data, based on the profile data of so, right? So if you later I'll share you more into this. This is what happened now. What's happening now? All right. So that's why I see there's a how you where I try to mengkawinkan the target audience with the user persona, and anak dia is and hopefully this step can serve the same function as the user persona as in usability or ACI, and it can serve the future use of automation in design process. That's the future. Right? There's a significant of it. So this is one another paper in 1917. I map out. Actually, I gone through. I think I can't remember how many hundred papers. I map out the study of user persona throughout the years. Actually, this one got some, but got more citations, and based on the three wave by Bocker's three ways of HCI. I mean the development. So you look at the development of HCI throughout the years, and okay, but I'm not going because of time constraints. I'm not going to do this, but I'm just want to show that. But actually, the mapping, the study end in 2016, and I published it in 2017. But lately, when I go through the Google's search and scholars notification that I receive, people are moving towards data-driven personas. Okay, and another interesting thing is even people are building. If you can look at one of the paper here at the top here, this is the latest paper that I received, I think a few days ago. UX persona for defining robots, character and personalities. So how a robot, how they put in the personalities of the robot based on personas. So that's to see the future of persona, how it goes. And there's a lot of study and application already into data-driven personas. Even at Facebook, that's how they collect the information of the user, and then so persona no longer into no, you have to go interview and this. But throughout the big data, all these things, they try to generate data from the user throughout the apps. For instance, Facebook that you guys are using. They come out with persona, then they know, okay, this is what you want, this is what you like. And they feed you with the particular advertisement based on your interest. I think through everybody's personal experience, you sometimes ask, hey, why Facebook keep on sending me this kind of advertisement? Because they learn from your behavior, learn from your activities, and that's the data-driven personas. and they know, okay, you always click this type of, this genre of website, or this genre of information, or this genre of images, then they'll start to feed you with the same genre of advertisement. So this is one typical example of how data-driven persona can be. So, right, and yeah, this is the acceptance study of a tab among graphic communication student, among the FYP student that I conduct 2020. So, but actually, it's still in a very initial stage of creating the idea of tab. Try to study how much how far they accept it. So based on the 10 model that I try to see how the student respond to the use of tab in the design process. Right. So the future work will be the formulation of tab construct framework in the pragmatic approach involving the industry action decisions. Hopefully this can work. So that's why now I'm looking for master students or anybody interested. But iklan sikit can can see me and then see how we can do. Because most of the time, that's why I come with a pragmatic approach rather than academic approach. Because whatever that I done here are more to academical studies. But at the end of the day, these are the things that we're going to introduce to the industry, introduce to the designer, and let them use. So it should be in a form of pragmatical approach rather than academic, academical research approach. If academical research approach, I can show you all the data, all the all this all this model, all this testing and validation. But to the people in the industry, it doesn't make sense to them. They want things fast and workable. And that is always the challenge to us here in the field of art and design, no? To position ourselves in between the industry and the requirement of the academic field. Okay. And yep, that's it. So thank you very much. So 53 minutes. So I hope that the sharing
Okay.
deliver what I supposed to share. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Go, for the informative sharing. Okay, now we understand a little bit about the important points on how to identify the target audience personas. We can see there is a few models structure that been developed, and we can use it as a guideline in the future research. So now we came to the Q&A session. So if there is any question from the participants or audience, you may unmute yourself, or maybe you can ask directly to our panel.
Hi, Mr. Go.
Yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Sam
Sam.
here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I find it really engaging and really interesting. I do have two questions for you because I find it's really interesting. Especially, I'm just wondering where does TAP stand, or where does it come in and in design thinking? Because in design thinking, there's five element: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So I was wondering where do this tab belong to when you look at design thinking? Because design thinking is one of the formula we use or framework we use when we're designing when you are doing design. So I was wondering, number one is where this tab comes in, and then in your other slide, the question number two is your other slide. You say that you combine the tab is actually a combination after a few waves of target audience and user persona, right? So because you came out with coined the term TAP or TAP, target audience persona. What is the parameter? I mean, how do you combine between the target audience and user persona? I mean, which parameter they use? I mean, what means which part of the target audience you're using, which is a user persona they use, and how do you decide which is which to make up the TAP or the target audience persona? Thank you very much. That's my two questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, PM Sam. Right, okay. I think the first answer to the first question will be that I think the key function of persona is empathize. right? So when it comes to design thinking, so you have no, that's so the main role that a main contribution that the tab of the persona can go to is the empathize part of the design thinking. That's how you can, because if not, then you just say, okay, empathize. But how are you going to empathize? So it's always the big question of how. So now the tab serve you a tool. This is the tool, this is the method how you can empathize. Right? One. And even you can, at the final stage of design thinking, which is testing, you can use it as an evaluation. You can go back, right? So from your design outcome, you can go back, refer to your persona's requirement and check. So there's a check and balance thing here, whether what you design fulfill the persona's requirement. So that's question one. For question two, I think if you go back to the theoretical models, that's why I try to go into the theoretical model where I look into these three attributes, which is goal, behavior, and attitudes. All right. So actually, there are different. If you go through the literature of persona user, especially user persona, there's a lot of people telling you this dimension, this parameter, this and that. Right. So there's no standard form, but of course there are few top scholars such as Donald Normans and other one is Lina Nielsen's. No, these are the few names. Another one is Pratt and a few big names, and you can see they achieve a very high score in citations. So there are different things. So that's why I try to dig into the theoretical foundation of graphic communication, and those are the three parameters, which is the goal, the behavior, and the attitude that we try to get. But always there's still a question: how you capture behavior, how you capture attitude, how you capture that is still somewhere that I and hopefully everybody we can go to look further into how to capture this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goh. Thank you so much. This is really interesting topic. So I was wondering, because when you pick that tree as tab, I'm wondering where's the parameter? How do you get that framework? Because there are other, like you said, there are other frameworks as well people are using, right? So I was wondering whether this could be actually, because if it's really good, then this can actually be put forward as the main point of reference, main reference for the design work when you're looking at the personas.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, PM. Any other questions?
Thank you, PM Sam. Anyone, if you have any question? If not, I will ask a question to Mr. Goh. So there is one question. Can we use a user persona to be used as a target audience persona?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. As I say, cuba kawinkan dia dua, so they anak dia. So, but there's no as I told PM Sam just now, there's no standard form or standard dimensions or parameter that you it's all based on your own requirement. Okay, but you can use my that the three things, no, three attributes as the guidance. Okay, and it's a crossbreed. So maybe in sometime you can just extract the data from a user person, because there's a lot of data, and actually there are people providing this kind of data, for certain particular target audience group or user group, that you can just take and use it, right? But for you to practice into target audience, then you just pick up whatever things that you need, right? So there's no clear boundary in between these two. But what I'm trying to share with everybody is that we can be more focused into to target audience, more specific into graphic communication with the use of this persona, rather than the user using the normal user persona as used by everybody. Because as I mentioned just now, there's a big difference in between the user and the target audience, right? So in here in the area of graphic communication, we should make use of it, but there's some area which is different. So that's why I come up with this idea. So it's cross. you can use in either way. It's just based on your own requirement and your justification as well.
All right, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Goh. And how about the data, the personal characteristic? This is about the data that you mentioned before. Because persona, we need a lot of data to collect. We need to collect all the data. What about the personal characteristic? Is there any criteria that we need to follow?
I think, as I mentioned just now, there are no specific way. But if you look at the tab, then we look at the behavior and the attitude and the goal of the thing. So probably you can go through interviews, interactions, and some sort of survey, and also even some serious UX designer will go for ethnographical study, in which you do a thorough observations to the user behavior. Even you can they go to the lab for eye tracking and all these things, right? So, but in a pragmatical form of defining this, actually there are various methods of persona building. There's one that like suggested by Don Norman, he call it as a ad hoc persona, right? So you can just sit down with few designer or maybe involved participations of some key target audiences that you identify. You sit down and you can just draft it out. So there's a pragmatical approach. But if you talk about the academic approach, then we can do no. So, but to the industrial people, that this is something that they will not do, right? So yeah, so that I think I hope that I answered the question.
All right.
Yeah.
So, regarding collecting data, it might takes a long time to gather the data. So, how long does it takes to create a persona?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next presentation to the student, then more
Okay.
focus into the methods.
All
So
right.
when come to method, there's a hard-driven, data-driven way of creating persona. There are agile methods of creating persona. And of course, now the later day, they are using the data-driven persona with automations. And another one is what promoted by, suggested by Donald Norman in one of his writing is the ad hoc persona. So ad hoc persona is the most easier way to sit down, as I mentioned, with some key stakeholders involved in the design process. You draft the character. That will be very fast, just within hours you can get. But if you want to build up a serious character for then of course it will take a longer time. So it depends on what project, what kind of design approach that and what kind of context that you involve.
All right.
Right.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
the
you.
clarification, Mr. Goh. Okay, there is one question from participant Aisha.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Goh. Thank you for this session. I have question. If there
Okay.
are huge pool of age and background of participant in a company and we want to give some information, in your opinion, how we want to do the personification of our participant, and how many is a many for us to do the segregation of the personas? Yeah, there is a question in the chat box.
Wait, let me see. Panjang sangat. Wait. Okay. Because was in a company, we wanted to give some information, and we want to give some information in your opinion. Personal information of person and how many students segregation. Okay, I think that that's why there's always a challenge when come to this part, because if you work in a private company, sometimes you don't have the time. Okay? So, but if you do FYP, of course, that's what we ask you to do. So what I always suggest is that you set your target, you set the sample group, and throughout the data collections, you will see some patterns that should slowly appear. Right? So through that patterns that appear, that you can capture and you can identify how many segmentations or how many persona that you can do based on that. So that will be based on the personal experience, that because I can't tell the numbers that which one is correct, which one is wrong. There's no such thing. But throughout the build out the sampling process and yeah, throughout the data analysis, slowly you see there the patterns. So based on that patterns, you can segmentize that, okay, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. That's the rigorous way of building persona through the data collections. Right? Another way that I always suggest to people in the industry is that use the ad hoc way. Right? So you just talk to experts, talk to key stakeholders, and then you identify and go. So that's why you some sort of like a reverse activity rather than go top down. Now you go identify. Okay, we have this kind of tree, and then you go back and see check whether is that true or not. Is that true? Then you just proceed. That's another way. It don't have to be just one way. You can go backward as well. Right? Okay. I hope that I answered the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think any more question from participants?
Mr.
If you
Go,
All right.
Yes.
Jasni here.
Hey, Dr. Justin. Yes.
Kabar.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations on your presentations. But I have a question
Okay.
regarding the differences between the user personas and also the user experience. Yeah, because the terms and also the elements inside of both
Okay.
areas actually is bit the same, you know. And how do the user can differentiate between these areas so that they can start to plan which one I need to do first and which one need to do later? That one my first questions. Yeah? My second questions will be the how do we tap the user personas with the upcoming big data technology, which is based on number they can predict some things that are going to be happen in future. That one my second question. Thank you, Mr. Go.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Justin. Okay, I think the first question, user persona and then user experience. Okay. Actually, you look at the definitions of user experience and then check into the framework of some of the major models of user experience. People always refer to these two parts, which is pragmatic and hedonic. And this is how people evaluate. But still, I think there's this some challenging part is that how people tell you or share. You know, how different people have different experience. Not only that, people in different contexts, you have another set of experience. So it's a very complicated kind of study. And through my experience and we'll see that how you ask me about how they link, right? I think the key thing will be the value. But value also there's another another hard challenging area is how to capture and record it. The key thing is the key element is the value. Because in user persona is talk about the values. Right? So the objective of the designer is try to change the value. which follow the goals of the target audience of the user. So try to persuade them, try to convince them, no, toward what we want, what we want to do. So the key thing is always there with you. And back to the user experience as well. That I think if you dig in there to the end, there's a value. But value is how you don't measure it, how to do. There's a different model, different people claim different things, so it's a bit complicated. But to answer the question, I think the key thing, the similarity, then you can see that there's a value. So hopefully, and then the user persona, that's we consider that's one of the way or one of the tools that you can study, okay? Or you can capture the value and to tell how they explain the outcome of the user experience. And then for this question 2, which is big data, so that's why you see the thing that I actually I stopped following the development after 2017. But you can see that now even some they cite one of my this paper in when they come to the data driven persona. So but the data driven persona, that is based on the big data. And there even they have a paper going into persona analytics. So that's another area, but of course the detail I'm not expert in computer science, but the detail will be that how they try to mine, they come with all this data mining, all this. So they're trying to mine the required data, and from that data they build the persona, and from that persona they understand, okay, what their target user or what their target audience want and what they like. And they design something to fulfill that requirement. That's why I always see that persona is a very useful tool. It has been used widely in ASEAN. So that's why I foresee that maybe in the future people will say that, okay, now we don't have to hire a designer to design something for you, but through some software, even it's happening now, right? Through some software, they can help you to design something based on the requirement. So that will be the time where you need to have the reference, the AI need to have the reference, and that can be it can be the also. Okay, so I hope I answered the question. Thank you.
Terima kasih,
Hey,
Cikgu.
thank you.
Terima kasih.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jasni, for the question. I think, is there any more question to ask? Anyone? All right, if not, we came to the end of the session. All right, finally, we would like to say thanks again to Mr. Goh for the informative and interesting talk, and to the audience for the active participant. Hopefully, the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. And don't forget, we have a link for my CSD for participant and students and staff. You may click the link and register. All right. Okay. Thank you and have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhu.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Mr.
everybody. Thank you.